Dick Van Dyke turned 99 just last month, and to the world, he still seemed unstoppable, dancing with his wife Arlene, exercising 3 times a week, smiling with the energy of someone half his age. But now, for the first time, Arlene Silver is breaking her silence. At 53, she has been quietly protecting a truth about Dick's real condition. She calls it the curse of living nearly a century. Recently, overwhelmed with emotion, she finally revealed the struggles that unfold behind closed doors, struggles the world never sees but ones that have become a part of Dick's daily life. Dick Van Dyke's story began on December 13, 1925, in the small town of West Plains, Missouri. His family lived simply, cramped rooms, limited money, and a father who spent more time traveling for the Sunshine Cookie Company than at home. His mother, a stenographer, shouldered most of the responsibility. Growing up with so little, Dick entertained himself with jokes and made up stories. Over time, those tiny sparks grew into something much bigger and shaped the man the world would one day celebrate. When Dick was 7, the family moved to Danville, Illinois, a cozy town of about 30,000 people. Neighbors waved from porches, families knew each other by name, and community felt like family. This warm environment fed Dick's imagination. He copied relatives' voices, repeated jokes from dinner tables, and soaked in every story he heard. Danville High School was small, but it became the doorway to his future. Drama clubs, music activities, school plays, each one pulled him deeper into the world of performing. It was here that he realized laughter could fill a room, and he wanted to be the person who brought that joy. At 18, while applying for a passport, he learned that his birthday had been wrong his entire life. His real birthdate was December 13, 1925. A life lived with the wrong birthday became a family secret he would carry and later share, a reminder that even small truths can reshape how one sees their own past. Dick's ancestry stretched back to Mayflower passenger John Alden, and his heritage mixed Dutch, English, Scottish, German, and Swiss German lines. His mother's Christian upbringing initially steered him toward ministry, but one high school drama class changed everything. The stage sparked something inside him, something bigger than sermons ever could. A life at home was noisy and full of mischief. His younger brother Jerry, born in 1931, constantly pulled pranks, sometimes hiding Dick's homework, other times causing chaos just for laughs. Their childhood dynamic later carried into the Dick Van Dyke Show, where their comedic chemistry became unforgettable. School brought another surprise. Dick shared halls with Donald O'Connor, Bobby Short, and a cousin of Gene Hackman. Surrounded by such talent, Dick began to understand the world he wanted to enter. In 1943, he graduated from Danville High during the height of World War II. At 17, he tried to enlist as a fighter pilot, but at 6 feet 1 inch and only 135 pounds, he was repeatedly rejected for being underweight. Eventually, he was accepted, not as a pilot but as a radio announcer. Weak eyesight ended his dreams of flying, but it led him to what he truly was meant to do, perform. He was stationed in Toledo, Ohio, working on a broadcast called Flight Time. Later, at Camp Crowder in Missouri, he paired up with Phil Erickson and created a silent comedy act called The Merry Mutes. Their routines poked fun at officers, so much so that they almost got court-martialed. Instead of punishment, they got a stern warning. Dick walked away knowing his humor carried an edge, one that would later define his career. After the war, he returned home at 19 with no job, no money, and no direction. He sold vacuum cleaners door to door, facing shut doors and frustration. But the belief that entertainment was his real calling kept him going. In 1947, at a church dance, he met Margie Willett. Quiet, steady, conservative, she was the opposite of Dick's big dreams. Yet, the two fell in love. Their differences created tension over the years, but their early love was strong enough to push forward. Then came a strange twist. In 1948, Dick performed a skit on the CBS show Bride and Groom and won $2,000. The producers invited him and Margie to marry on live radio. They accepted. 15 million listeners heard their vows. They received rings, furniture, appliances, and a 10-day honeymoon, after which they returned broke, living in a relative's basement. Their marriage began in hardship. They lived in Phil Erickson's home while Dick and Phil formed their comedy team Eric and Van. Meanwhile, Margie felt alone, overwhelmed by fear that Dick's dreams might never pay off. In 1946, Dick began hustling at WDN in Danville, making $35 a week. By 1947, he left for California with almost nothing. He worked at KPS Radio in Pasadena, making $50 per week while living in a tiny trailer, surviving on peanut butter and cheap coffee. Eric and Van struggled in smoky nightclubs, facing hecklers and rejection. Then, in 1953, everything changed. They won a CBS talent contest and landed a radio job in Atlanta. Within months, they had 20,000 listeners. But disagreements broke the partnership, and Dyke was left alone again. By 1955, stress pushed him to the breaking point. He was arrested for appearing drunk, though it was nervous exhaustion. Sponsors backed away. Jobs disappeared. At 30 years old, $10,000 in debt, he nearly quit entertainment altogether. In 1957, he appeared on The Johnny Carson Show and bombed, forgetting his jokes. But Carl Reiner noticed something special. Reiner encouraged him to audition for Broadway, leading to a tiny part in 1958's The Girls Against the Boys. It paid almost nothing, but it got Dyke to New York. His family grew: Christian in 1948, Barry in 1949, Stacy in 1955, Carrie Beth in 1961. Margie worked to support them. Stress pushed Dyke into drinking, something he had quietly. His Broadway debut in 1959 barely lasted 2 weeks, yet producers noticed something unusual in him. That spark led to Bye Bye Birdie in 1960. Dyke feared he couldn't keep up. He had never been trained for musical theater. But when the curtain rose on April 14, 1960, he captured the audience instantly. The show ran 607 performances, making millions, though Dyke made only $500 weekly, some of which he donated to charity. He won the 1961 Tony Award for Best Featured Actor. But behind the scenes, he was overwhelmed. Director Gower Champion pushed him brutally. Dyke nearly quit until Carl Reiner encouraged him to stay. When the film remake arrived in 1963, Dyke's salary was slashed. Hollywood's reminder that Broadway stars held little power. Still, it launched him into film. This success flowed into The Dick Van Dyke Show. CBS rejected the show twice, but that iconic stumble over the ottoman changed everything. From 1961 to 1966, it delivered 158 episodes and up to 30 million viewers. Dyke improvised nearly 40% of his lines, and his chemistry with the cast became legendary, but fame brought strain. Salary conflicts, jealousies, and off-screen tension created cracks. At home, Dyke struggled with drinking while Margie quietly dealt with prescription pill addiction. Their marriage weakened as the show thrived. By 1966, exhausted, he ended the show despite CBS wanting more seasons. He received a star on the Walk of Fame and a $1 million syndication deal, but it all felt heavy. Margie had raised their children mostly alone. His absences left wounds he couldn't erase. Mary Poppins arrived in 1964. Dyke worked tirelessly, though his Cockney accent became famously mocked. Still, the film became a classic, earning millions and giving him a Grammy. But behind the cheerful exterior, he was fighting anxiety and smoking heavily. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, 1968, made him globally beloved, though privately, he battled depression and dark thoughts. He refused offers to play James Bond twice, knowing he could never carry the famous accent. Hollywood in the 70s was both a comeback and a nightmare. The new Dick Van Dyke Show brought a $50,000 per episode paycheck, but writing faltered. Ratings dropped. Dyke drank more. By the mid-70s, he entered AA and spoke openly about alcoholism being a disease. His frankness helped countless people. The 80s brought more theater, painkiller dependency from back injuries, and new success with The Carol Burnett Show. His career rose and fell unpredictably. Family life was complicated. His affairs, particularly with Michelle Triola, broke his 32-year marriage. He felt guilt for decades. Michelle stayed with him until her death in 2009. Margie died in 2008 from pancreatic cancer, another heartbreak he carried silently. In 2012, he married Arlene Silver, 46 years younger. People criticized the age gap, calling her a trophy wife, but Dyke insisted she made him feel young again. Arlene became his source of joy, routine, and emotional grounding. In 2024, at age 98, he made history as the oldest daytime Emmy winner, still performing with charm and energy. But then came the truth. Arlene revealed the curse of living nearly 100 years, outliving everyone you love. Ed Asner, Norman Lear, nearly every friend gone. Dyke sometimes feels diminished and painfully lonely. He works out to stay strong, But age brings fatigue and vulnerability. On his 99th birthday, December 2024, the Franklin wildfire nearly turned celebration into tragedy. His Malibu home was evacuated. Pets rescued. Neighbors helped. It became a reminder of how fragile things become at his age, yet through all this, Dick still sings, still dances with Arlene, still writes, still hopes. Arlene says the world sees his smile, but not the loneliness, the fear, the quiet moments of forgetting, the physical weakness creeping in. People think he's ageless, she said, but nobody sees the price of living this long.